Welcome back. Before. When Hannah awoke the next day, it was slowly, painfully crawling up from dark dreams of being chased and hunted down and beaten. As she came back to consciousness, she became aware that the aching muscles and the bruised bones were not part of the dream, but real. She was still fully clothed under the covers, and she could feel the crusted blood on the inside of her thigh and pull, and the pull of the denim where it had dried into the cut. There were grazes on her cheekbones and chin where her face had been ground into gravel, and every joint seemed to have seized up overnight. For a long time she simply lay there, blinking, trying to come to terms with what had happened and what she could do about it. But then she became aware of something else, the unmistakable sounds of sex coming from April's room. All of a sudden, Hannah knew that she couldn't stay there, listening, wondering if it was going to be Will, bruised lips in a sheepish grin, sidling out of Hannah's doorway, or someone completely different slipping out unseen. She didn't want to know. Either possibility was unbearable. Instead, she grabbed her towel and change of clothes and headed out of the flat down to the landing where the bathroom was. Beneath the hot water, the cuts and abrasions were even more painful. The bruises on her skin even more clearly delineated. She had to do something. She had to say something. It didn't matter, surely, that she had been climbing a wall. She wasn't trespassing. She was a member of the college who didn't deserve to be assaulted. But who could she tell? Obviously not the other porters, though they were supposed to be the first resort for immediate security threats. And not the master. Hannah had never met him, but she had seen him at the top table at formal dinners and attended his address at the beginning of term, and she couldn't imagine going to such an austere, remote figure with a problem like this, which left Dr. Myers. She couldn't think who else she could approach. For a while, she stood under the stream of hot water considering the problem, trying to imagine bringing it up to Dr. Myers, trying out the words in her head. He assaulted me. No, that wasn't quite right. That sounded more sexual than she wanted it to, though the memory of Neville's crotch pressing into her backside was still uneasily vivid in her mind. He tackled me. That was closer to the mark. But did it sum up the seriousness of what had happened? Did it convey the real fear she had experienced, feeling Neville's crushing weight on hers, his arms on the back of her neck, his body pinning her to the gravel as he ground her face into the dirt? He hurt me. No, that had the pathetic ring of a child in a playground scrap, even though it was true. At last, Hannah gave up and turned off the tap, towering herself gingerly, trying not to open up the partially healed scrapes and grazes from last night. She got dressed and then stood, uncertainly, her towel and pajamas in one hand, her wash bag in the other. What she should do, the logical thing to do, was go back up to her room and drop off her things before heading to breakfast, but she couldn't face it. April's visitor might still be there, and Hannah wasn't sure which would be more awkward, confronting April in a potential betrayal of Will, or bursting in on their makeup sex and having to deal with Will's concern and pity over her bruised face. Neither appealed, at least not before coffee. Instead, Hannah rolled her pajamas up inside her damp towel, tucked it under her arms, and headed down the stairs to the hall and breakfast. Hannah, over here. She heard Emily's voice before she saw her, waving an arm from the other side of the hall and pointing to an empty place on a bench beside her. Taking a deep breath, Hannah waved a hand back, then began to edge her tray of coffee and cheese on toast through the breakfasting students. When she got to the table, she was half fearing Emily's reaction, but Emily was busy talking to Hugh, sitting opposite, and didn't seem to clock the bruises on Hannah's face. Feeling an odd sense of relief, Hannah slid into the free space with her head down and said nothing as she began to eat. Well, Hugh said at last, pushing away an untouched slice of toast and standing up. I'd better get going. I've got my final exam at 2, and I haven't done nearly enough prep. He looked almost sick with nerves, and Hannah found herself wondering vaguely why he had allowed himself to be talked into attending April's play the night before his prelims when he was clearly so worried. Wish me luck. Good luck, Hannah said, smiling encouragingly at him. As she did so, her face caught the light filtering through the high-leaded windows, and Hugh stopped. He put his tray back on the table and adjusted his glasses with a frown. Hannah, what happened to your cheek? What? Oh, she touched her fingers to the graze on her cheekbone and gave a self-conscious laugh. Is it that bad? Hannah, Emily said. She leaned forward, drawing back the curtains of Hannah's hair with one finger, and then her expression changed. Whoa, did you fall off that wall? No, Hannah said. She felt a sudden wash of self-consciousness and something else, something closer to guilt, though she could not have said why. She twitched her hair out of Emily's hand, letting it fall back over her cheek. Not exactly. Someone caught me. Someone caught you? Hugh was frowning. Doing what? I climbed over the wall and, she stopped, glancing over her shoulders to see if anyone else was listening. Why did she feel so ashamed of what happened? One of the porters kind of tackled me. She gave a shaky laugh, trying to lighten the atmosphere. I'm quite sore this morning. Makes me feel like maybe the rugby players earned those stupid blues after all. One of the porters? Emily said in a hard voice, ignoring Hannah's attempt at diversion. Hannah, which porter are we talking about? Not. Hannah said nothing, but she nodded and Emily's face changed. Jesus Christ, what did he say? Have you reported this? Not yet, Hannah said. She kept her voice low, horribly conscious of Emily's ringing indignation. He didn't say anything. I didn't wait around to talk. Somebody turned up and I ran off. Oh my God. Emily stood up as if her anger was too much to be contained while still seated. Hannah, I don't know what to say. Why didn't you call me? Hannah stopped. She swallowed. I didn't. But Emily was shaking her head, and Hannah knew that she didn't have to finish the sentence, that somehow Emily, like all women who'd ever been alone and afraid at night, understood the strange mix of guilt, disgust, and self-hatred she was experiencing and knew exactly how she was feeling. Hugh's face, by contrast, was a mixture of alarm and bewilderment, and he looked first at Emily, then Hannah, then back at Emily as if seeking guidance. Gosh, can we do something? He forced out at last. His cheeks were flushed, though Hannah was not sure if it was with anger or embarrassment. Don't worry, Hugh, Emily said grimly. I've got this. You get to your exam. Hannah, we're going to report this. I will, Hannah said firmly, trying to claw back some control over the situation, but Emily shook her head. Not I will. Do it now, while you've still got the bruises, while they can't shake this off. We'll go to the master. No. Hannah's voice was sharp, and now people really were looking. She lowered it, forcing herself to speak more calmly. No, honestly, I think that's too drastic. I was thinking about it in the shower this morning. I want to take it to Dr. Myers. He's my professor, and it says in the handbook that he's first port to call for any pastoral issues. Dr. Myers? Emily looked doubtful. Isn't he that creepy one? The guy who's always inviting students up to his room? He's had a couple of parties, Hannah said wearily. April and I went to one. It wasn't exactly Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, so we'll go to him. Ready? Hannah opened her mouth and then stopped. She wasn't ready. She probably wouldn't ever be. But she could see that Emily wasn't going to let her off the hook. Okay, so just because Emily is helping don't mean that she didn't set her up. Some 15 minutes later, they were standing outside of Dr. Meyer's office door, listening to noises from within. "He's with someone," Hannah whispered. "We should come back." But before Emily could answer, the door opened and a girl Hannah recognized from Dr. Meyer's party came out, swishing her long dark hair over one shoulder as she passed them in the hall. "Have a good break, Dr. M," she said over her shoulders. "Au revoir, Ruby," Dr. Myers called after her. "Until next year." "Ah, Hannah," he said in slight surprise. "We don't have a tutorial this week due to exams. Had I forgotten?" "No," Hannah said reluctantly. "I hadn't forgotten. And if now isn't a good time—" "Hannah wanted to speak to you about something," Emily cut in. "Something important. Do you have 10 minutes, Dr. Myers?" 10 minutes? Dr. Meyer looked at his watch and then nodded. "Yes, 10 minutes I can do. Come in." He stood back and Hannah and Emily edged past him into the little office. The blinds were drawn against the summer sun, casting the room into pools of lights and shadows. Hannah perched rather nervously on the edge of the chair she used in tutorials, letting her hair fall around her face, while Emily took the armchair in the corner and folded her arms with a grim expression. "What can I help you with, Hannah?" Dr. Meyer said pleasantly. Hannah felt a flutter in her gut at the thought of what she might be about to set in motion, but then stilled herself. John Neville had gone too far this time. She had to say something. "It's about one of the porters," she said. Her throat was dry and she swallowed, wishing she had something to drink at breakfast other than strong coffee. "John Neville. He's the very tall one?" "Yes, I know Mr. Neville," Dr. Meyer said, frowning as if he didn't understand quite where all this was leading. "He caught me last night climbing over the wall behind clothes," Hannah said. Her heart was beating fast. "And he rugby tackled me to the ground. She swallowed again. It felt like something was blocking her throat, making it hard to breathe. "He threw himself on top of me. I couldn't move. She stopped, unable to think how to go on. She managed again and then shut her eyes. "Hannah's hurt, Dr. Myers," Emily broke in furiously. "Look at her face. It was totally disproportionated, and it's part of a pattern of really threatening behaviors towards Hannah and—" "Ladies, hold up. Dr. Myers said, raising his hand. "What's this about your face, Hannah?" Reluctantly, Hannah pulled back the curtains of her hair, shielding her bruised cheek, and leaned forward into the pool of sunlight. Dr. Myers looked at the marks in silence for a few moments and then folded his arms. "I see. Run me through what happened step by step, Hannah. You were climbing over the wall? Why were you climbing over the wall?" "I didn't," Hannah started, then stopped. She had been going to say, "I didn't want Neville to see me going through the lodge." But now she was worried that would sound like she had pre-existed grudge against Neville. "It was a shortcut," she finished rather lamely. "The closed gate was shut." "Very well. So you climbed the wall, and what happened next?" "I was climbing down the other side, and I felt someone grab me by my ankle." "Someone? You didn't know it was Neville at first?" "No, I didn't know it was him at first. It was dark, and I was scared, so I kicked out and ran away." "And he ran after you?" "Yes. He called out something like, 'Stop, stop, trespasser.' I can't remember." "Very well. And then what happened?" "He caught up with me by the cloisters," Hannah said. The words felt thick in her mouth. She heard again Neville's pounding footsteps behind her, the whiplash sensation as he grabbed her collar, jerking her back. "He grabbed my coat and then tripped me, and I fell, and he threw himself on top of me. He had his arm across the back of my neck. I couldn't—" Her breath was coming fast. Her heart was knocking in her ears. "I couldn't breathe. I started to see stars. And then someone else came along and said something like, 'What's going on?' And he stood up and I just ran. I was so scared." "But you saw it was him?" "When he tripped me, yes, I knew it was him." Her voice was shaking now. She felt tears prick at the corner of her eyes. "I'm absolutely certain it was him. I recognized his voice and his—" She stopped. She couldn't bring herself to say his smell. It implied a level of intimacy she wished she didn't have. And there was someone else there, she said instead, stumbling over the words. A man. I think it was a member of college staff. Whoever it was spoke to Neville. He'll corroborate my story, confirm it definitely was Neville who tackled me. And it's not just my face. Look. She stood up, yanking at the hem of her shirt, pulling it up to show her torso, the scarlet scrapes fast darkening into the blotched purple bruises. Look, I'm not making this up. Behind her, Hannah heard Emily sucking a breath at the sight of her battered ribs, and she let the t-shirt drop and sat back down, her cheeks flaming. Well, look, let me say first and foremost, I'm absolutely not trying to cast doubt on what you experienced, Dr. Myers said slowly. He stood up too, pacing to the window as if trying to give himself time to consider his response. It sounds, well, deeply unpleasant, and I'm not at all surprised you're shaken up by it. But I'm just trying to understand the sequences of events from Neville's perspective. You say yourself that you didn't realize it was Neville until he tackled you. And, Hannah said angrily. She took a shaky breath, realizing that her voice had become shriller and more accusatory than she meant it to be. No, she said more evenly. No, that's correct. I didn't. So, it's very likely that Neville didn't recognize you either. He simply saw someone breaking into the college and quite properly asked them to stop and then pursue them when they didn't. Dr. Myers, did you see those bruises? Emily said, standing up in her turn. Her voice was calm, but dangerously so, and Hannah could tell she was only just keeping her temper in check. And have you seen Hannah's face? He didn't just pursue her. He leaped on top of a defenseless female student and ground her face into the dirt until she couldn't speak. And more to the point, this isn't the first time that he targeted Hannah. In fact, well, that's just it, Dr. Myers broke in. That's what I'm trying to understand here. Because obviously, if you're saying Miss Emily Lippman, Emily said shortly, Miss Lippman, that this is part of a pattern of an inappropriate behavior, that's quite a serious allegation. But I can't see how this fits with that. From Hannah's own admission, it was a very dark night, and she didn't recognize Neville until he was actually tackling her. I'm not sure under those circumstances how Neville was supposed to have been targeting Hannah specifically. As far as I can see, he just tackled a supposed intruder. Maybe a little harder than necessary, but he broke into my room, Hannah said. Her heart was thumping. He came into my room while I was out. And did anything inappropriate happen while he was there? Fuck inappropriate. He shouldn't have been in a goddamn student's room in the first place, Emily shouted. Dr. Myers' face changed at that. He held up a hand. Miss Lippman, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to request that you lower your voice, and if you swear at me again, I will be asking you to leave this office. It's Hannah's account I would like to hear. Hannah, did anything happen when he came to your room? He said he had a parcel, Hannah said. Her throat was dry, and she looked away from Dr. Myers now out the window. Her eyes were prickling again, and she blinked hard, trying to squeeze back the tears that were threatening to fall. She would not cry in front of Dr. Myers. He wouldn't give it to me when I asked. And did he have a parcel? Hannah said nothing. She shut her eyes and nodded. Well, Dr. Myers said in a slightly brisker, I'm sympathetic, but this interview is coming to a closed tone. I'm very sorry you've had what was clearly a very unpleasant experience. But can I suggest that in the meantime you refrain from climbing over college's walls and enter in the appropriate way like everyone else? Now, I'll speak to Mr. Neville about this. What? Hannah broke in, horrified. No, please, no. Don't tell him I told you all of this. Well, I can't address these allegations without hearing Mr. Neville's account of what happened, Dr. Myers said. His expression was exasperated now, the sympathy receding further, and he paced to the window, turning his back on them both before returning to the desk to perch on the corner, one thigh hooked over the edge, smiling with what was clearly an effort at being conspicuously understanding. Look, Hannah, the bottom line is, I can take this further if you would like me to, but not without talking to Mr. Neville to hear his version of events. Which is it to be? Hannah looked at Emily. She had her arms folded across her chest, plainly only just containing her fury, but didn't speak, only raised her shoulders in a tight, this is your decision kind of way. Shit. Dr. Myers consulted his watch. He did not make a pretense of hiding it. Can I think about it? Hannah asked. Her voice sounded small and uncertain in her own ears. It did not sound like the voice of someone making a credible accusation. Certainly. Dr. Myers stood up again, all warmth and bonhomie now. Take your time. He moved to the door, plainly signaling that the interview was over. Now, if you'll forgive me, I have to prepare for my 10 o'clock. I'll look forward to seeing you for our final tutorial next week, Hannah. Pleased to make your acquaintances, Miss Lipman. But as they filed out into the corridor, Hannah knew with a depressing certainty that one thing was sure. She would not be back to Dr. Myers' tutorial next week. In fact, she wasn't sure if she could ever face him again. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. He kind of got a point. Neville didn't know it was her. He thought it was an intruder. And I'm trying to figure out, I understand Emily is being, supportive of her friend and all of that, but she's angry, right? Which is rightfully so. But I still feel like she kind of set her up or set something in motion to cover tracks. You know what I'm saying? Kind of, sort of. Okay. After. On the train back to Edinburgh, she sits and stares out the window, replaying Ryan's words over and over. Is this a joke? A pregnancy test? A positive pregnancy test? It's nothing she didn't know from her conversation with Geraint, but somehow hearing it from Ryan's mouth, was it real? She could have drawn it on with a bureau for all I know. Fuck. She rubs her face. Part of her wants to scrub away the memory of the conversation and all of the poisonous suspicions it stirred up, but she knows she can't. Not just because she can't think of anything else, but because even if she were given the choice of magically erasing Ryan's word from her memory, she wouldn't do it. She can't let this go, because whether or not it's true, whether or not even April, inveterated practical joker, would have been cruel enough to play this unforgivable horror hoax on Ryan, it is a missing piece of the puzzle which has finally turned up out of the blue, throwing the whole existing pattern out of alignment. A positive pregnancy test, real or not, is exactly what was missing from the case against Neville. It is a motive, and not just for Ryan, it's a motive for Will, and for anyone else who was sleeping with April. I said that, right? Hannah remembers again the noises coming from behind that closed bedroom door the morning after the premiere of April's play. And more than ever, she wishes that she had stopped, pulled back the door, and put a face to whoever was in there. Because it wasn't Ryan, that much she is sure of, or at least as sure as she can be without asking him outright. Not just because of the way he reacted on the first night of the play, pulling away from April as if reluctant to touch her, but because of what he said in their conversation just now. She texted me the morning after that first night. If April were in bed with Ryan, why would she text him with the news just an hour or so later? It wouldn't be plausible to go from carefree, noisy sex to a pregnancy test in a single morning. Oh, it's possible. Ryan could have pissed her off, and she could have did whatever she wanted to try to piss him off. Ryan wouldn't have been taken in. He would have wondered why she had raised her worries why hadn't she raised her worries just an hour or so earlier. But if it wasn't Ryan, then who? Will is the next most obvious candidate, but Hannah isn't sure about him either. There was something wrong that night at the play, some kind of reserve or antagonism between him and April that didn't seem to mesh with the loud performative sounds coming through the wall the following morning. And though it makes her flush to think of it, Hannah knows what Will sounds like during sex, both now and then. What you mean now? I understand now. What you mean and then? Well, she probably heard. Okay. She watches the countryside rippling hypnotically past the windows, thinking about her husband, thinking about the way he holds himself over her, bracing his weight on his forearm, staring into her eyes, silent, concentrated, attentive. He doesn't whimper and grunt and thrash about like someone in the Blue movie. Why? Why didn't she stay behind that morning? Why didn't she curl up and wait in the living room armchair to see who exactly came out of April's bedroom? Why didn't she confide in April what had happened? Because y'all not friends. Because she was traumatized and in denial. Because she was recovering from, and now 10 years on, she can say the words without feeling they are too strong, an assault. And because she didn't know, she had no idea how important that question would become. She didn't know that many years later, so much would end up hanging on it. Her happiness, her future, her marriage. It is at that moment that the train goes into a tunnel and momentarily loses power. The lights in the carriage go out just for a second, and it's then that Hannah feels it. Something just below her belly. A flutter like a bubble popping, or an elastic band snapping, or something small and slippery and feathery rippling inside her. She goes utterly still. She doesn't even breathe. And then the train comes out of the tunnel and the carriage is flooded with lights again, and she is left sitting perfectly still, her hand over her stomach, iridescent with happiness. And for the first time since John Neville died, she isn't thinking about April or the past or the fact that she may have condemned an innocent man to die in prison. She is thinking about her baby, the new life inside her, and her happiness is so intense that it hurts. That's the end of that chapter. So we don't know if it was Ryan in the room. Don't know who was in the room with April that time. Okay. Before. Well, fuck you. Well, fuck you. The voices came clear through the door of April's room, making Hannah wince, wondering if they knew she was sitting just on the other side of the wall, working on her final essay of the term. She thought about calling out, "Hey, some of us are trying to study," as a jokey way of alerting them to her presence. But before she could do so, the door to April's bedroom opened and Will walked out, slamming it bad-temperedly behind him. Oh, he had the grace to blush when he saw her sitting there. "Sorry, I didn't realize." "No, gosh, I mean, it's fine," Hannah said. She put down the book and stood awkwardly, twisting her fingers together. "You weren't disturbing me." The lie makes her cheeks color. "I mean, I should have moved." Are you okay?" was what she wanted to ask, but she wasn't sure if it sounded patronizing or disloyal. She was supposed to be April's friend. April, who was probably listening from the other side of the doorway right now. She couldn't be seen to be taking Will's side. But Will was frowning, and now he came across the room to stand closer, looking at her with an unsettling intensity. Hannah, what happened to your face? Hannah felt a sinking feeling inside her. Was this how it was going to be for the next few days? Having to tell the story over and over? Does it show? She knew she was evading the question, but she still hadn't made up her mind what to do about Neville. Could she really face taking it further? Oh, okay. Will nodded. I mean, it doesn't look terrible, but it does look like you had an argument with a door and lost. That's pretty much it, Hannah said with a shaky laugh. It was another lie, or as near to one as made no odds. But she couldn't bear to tell Will the truth. His reaction would be worse than Emily's. She would probably get frog marched down to see the masters and have to face that exquisitely polite skepticism all over again. Are you coming to April's closing night on Saturday? She asked at last, more as a way of changing the subject than because she really wanted to know. Will's mouth twisted and his eyes met hers. No, it's my mother's birthday weekend and she's not, well, never mind, that doesn't matter. The point is I'm going home to Somerset. I'll be back Sunday. That's what we were. Well, you heard. For a minute, they stood in silence, holding each other's gaze with an intensity that was almost painful. Her eyes were a clear brown, like peat water. She could see a muscle move in the side of his jaw as he swallowed. He took a step towards her, one hand outstretched, and something shivered down her spine. A prickle of desire so strong it felt like water running over her skin. For a moment, she thought he was going to touch her, but then involuntarily she glanced at April's closed bedroom door, and somehow that one simple thing broke the spell between them. Will dropped his eyes and took a step back as if he had only just remembered why he was here. Well, see you around, he said, and then he was gone. There was a long pause, and then April's bedroom door opened. What's that about? She was scowling, and Hannah had the strong impression that she had been listening and waiting for Will to leave. Are you okay? Hannah asked. What happened? My so-called boyfriend bloody mother is what happened, April said. She was tapping her foot, radiating a furious wired energy. How dare he? Saturday is the final night. He knows what that means to me. But no, Mommy's not well. Mommy's turning 50. Mommy must come first. She put on a whining, babyish voice for the last phrases that sounded so extremely unwell that Hannah felt she ought to protest. One look at April's thunderous face made her reconsider. He did come to the opening night, she ventured, but April rounded on her. So, he's my bloody boyfriend. Or was. I'm seriously reconsider, given he apparently doesn't give a wet fart about my feelings. The opening night is about the lowest possible bar. I mean, everyone came to the opening night, even Hugh, even Sod and Emily. This is the most important thing I've ever done, Han. Is it too much to hope Will will come and support me instead of his hypochondriac mother? His mother's ill, was what Hannah was thinking. But she could see instantly that there was no point in saying that to April. It would only fan her indignation. Forget about him, she found herself saying instead. I'll come on Saturday. And you know what? We'll do something afterwards. An after party. A proper one. We'll have all the cast back here to the bar. We'll organize themed cocktails. The Medea. What should it be? Something bloody. Cranberry juice with vodka and grenadine? Isn't that a sex on the beach? April said, but Hannah could see she was softening, that the idea of an after party was reeling her in. Her taut fury was relaxing a little, and she came around the side of the armchair, flung herself back into it. the spring squeaking. An after party would be pretty cool, though. You really do that for me? Of course, Hannah said. She gave April a friendly punch on the arm. You're my best friend. There was a moment's pause, and then April's face broke into a wide, beaming smile. That smile that felt like a megawatt spotlight had been turned on you. You, Hannah Jones, are the bloodiest best. That's what you are. She stood, brushing down her skirt. Right? Come down for supper. She didn't say she was her best friend. I'm just saying. I can't, Hannah said bitterly. I've got to finish this essay. I spent all week revising for prelims, and now I'm just so bloody knackered I can't think straight. April paused, looking at her, and then she said, a little smile flickering at the corner of her lips so that her dimple came and went. I could help with that if you want. Help with my essay? Hannah looked up at her, frowning. Have you read Spencer? No, I mean, help with the concentration. She turned and went back into her room, and Hannah heard her rummaging in the mess of her bedside table. Then she came out, 2 pills in the palm of her hand, holding them out towards Hannah. Hannah stared down at them. They were little capsules, half colored, half clear, filled with what looked like dozens of tiny little balls inside. What are they? Like no dawes or something? No dawes for grown-ups, April said. She gave that little half smile again, the dimple coming and going in one cheek. Go on, take them. There's plenty more where those came from. I mean, look, thanks, but honestly, I'm nearly there. I just need to nail this last paragraph and then I can turn it in. Okay, April said lightly. Suit yourself. She put the pills carelessly in her pocket and then picked up her coat. Oh, and vodka, cranberry, champagne, and creme de cassis. What? For Medea. Vodka, cranberry, champagne, and creme de cassis in a champagne coupe with a maraschino cherry on top. You're on, Hannah said. April smiled. That's the end of that chapter. Is April selling drugs? Now that's another thing that you can add on to her demise. Was she selling drugs? Was she pushing pills? And somebody she probably didn't have the pills, and there's more to add to it. Okay. After. On the walk back from the train station, Hannah calls Wills. The baby moved. He's in the street. She can hear the background noises, the sound of a fire engine passing. What did you say? He raised his voice above the siren. Who's moving? Sorry, it's really loud. Not who, the baby. I felt it, Will. I felt our baby move. There is a split-second silence, and then she hears his incredulous, joyous laugh. It moved? You really felt it? Yes, twice. I was on the way home and I felt it, Will. It was the strangest thing, like bubbles popping or something. It was so weird. Like, I've had things before where I wasn't sure, but this, it was so alien. I knew it was him. Him? They haven't found out the sex. It was Hannah's decision more than Will's. A kind of superstition, although she can't put her finger on why she doesn't want to know. Or her, she blushes. It just feels weird to keep saying it when he's becoming a real person. I really want to feel it, he says, and she can hear the delight grin in his voice. Do you think I'll be able to yet? I don't know. She put her hands over her belly now, as if to test, but of course it's not moving. I'm not sure. Are you on your way home? Yeah, I knocked off early, he says. His voice changes and he sounds suddenly worried and pissed off. Work was a bitch. Do you think it's normal to hate your boss? Hannah bites her lip. Poor Will. He never wanted to be an accountant. He wanted to change the world, but he fell into this when he moved to Edinburgh, and now he can't afford to quit. I mean, I don't hate Kathy, she says. a little lamely. There aren't many Kathys around, though, Will said. Not an accountant, anyway. And like my dad always used to say, if work was meant to be fun, people wouldn't pay you to do it. Hannah laughs at that, but when they have talked about supper and said their goodbyes, she put her phone away with a sinking feeling. Will had always been the main wage earner. Accountancy just pays better than bookshop work. That's all there is to it. But now it feels like the pressure of her impending maternity leave is getting to him. She doesn't know what to do about it. Can I feel it? Is it moving now? Will had taken the stairs two at a time, and now he pulls Hannah into a big bear hug, his leather cool against her cheek. Hannah shakes her head. I don't think so. I can't feel him at the moment, but even if I could, I don't think you'll be able to tell anything about from the outside. It's too soon. I think the book said it's normally about 6 months before the dad can feel any movement. He moved, Will says, as if trying out the words. He stands there, the huge, foolish grin spread across his face, like he doesn't know what to do with himself. And then he kisses her, as if he cannot contain himself, his hands on either side of her face, his lips cool against her warm ones. Our baby moved. Oh my God, Hannah, this is real. It's really happening. I know, she wants to tell him, but she doesn't. She just stands there smiling back, feeling their shared happiness balloon between them, huge and fragile. What's that smell? He says now, breaking their reverie. Oh shit, the onions. Hannah had forgotten in the excitement of hearing Will's feet on the stairs. I'm making bolognas. They go through the kitchen where Hannah peers into the pan, scraping the sticking onion off the bottom. I think they'll be okay, just a bit caramelized maybe. They'll be delicious, Will said reassuringly. Hey, how was the appointment, by the way? God, the appointment. It feels like 1,000,000 years ago, and for a moment, Hannah has to struggle to remember what happened. Oh, fine. I mean, not totally fine. I was still a bit up, but it's no big deal. They don't think it's preeclampsia or anything serious. I just probably need to distress a bit. The midwife wants me back next week, just to check. She pauses. This is the moment she has to say something about her visit to see Ryan. Because she can't keep this from Will, it concerns him too. I had a free day after the appointment, she says carefully, tipping the mince into the pan so that she doesn't have to look at him as she says the words. So I called in to see Ryan. Sorry? Will cups his ear. The meat is spitting and hissing, making it hard to hear above the noise of frying. Who did you see? I didn't catch what you said. I went to see Ryan, she says more loudly. She put down the spoon and turned around. Our Ryan Coates. Wait a second. Will is frowning. She can't quite read the expression on his face. It looks like disbelief mixed with a kind of controlled annoyance he is trying not to show. A flush is climbing up from the collar of his biker jacket, stained his tan cheeks. You went all the way to York to see Ryan Coates and you didn't tell me? It wasn't premeditated, she said quickly, though that's only half true. I didn't even call ahead to warn Ryan. I got halfway there and realized he might be out. That part is at least is right. But I had to, Will. I couldn't get what Durant said out of my head. And I wanted to hear it from Ryan and to find out whether Durant was some kind of delusional stalker or if he really is a mate of Ryan's. If he was making all this up, I needed to know. Maybe even get the police involved. Will looks a little less blindsided, as if he can see the sense in this last part at least, but he's still shaking his head in bewilderment. And you couldn't call? I mean, York? It's not exactly down the road, is it? It's not that far. It was actually really nice just relaxing on the train. And I know, Will, I felt like I owed it to him to make the trip, to see him face to face, rather than just ringing him up to pick his brains. I don't exactly feel proud of the amount of support we gave him after the stroke. Do you? Will has the grace to look slightly ashamed at this. He gives a very slight gesture with his head, halfway between a nod and a shake. Not quite either, but she knows what he means. Yes, he can see her point. No, he isn't proud of his actions either. Ryan was a friend, one of their best friends. They owed him more. Best friends? Okay. How was he? He says at last. He turns away and begins to shrug off his jacket. More for something to do, Hannah has the impression. The back of his neck is still flushed and red. I mean, surprisingly good, actually, Hannah says. She looks at Will's back, at the shape of his shoulders beneath his shirt, trying to imagine him struck down overnight the way Ryan was. The idea gives her a sharp pain beneath her heart. He's still in a wheelchair, but his speech is amazing. Just a very slight slur, and he misses the old word. He misses the odd word, but nothing major. I didn't see his kids, but they sound adorable, and Bella's clearly a keeper. Yeah, Will says slowly. Yeah, he hit the jackpot with Bella all right. So what did he say about that reporter bloke? And I take it you talked about, he swallows, about April? Yeah, Hannah says. She sits down on a stool by the counter, rubbing her sore feet. Yeah, we did. He really does know Durant. Says he's a good bloke and that he shares some of Durant's concerns. And he said, oh God, can she really say this? But she has to. She can't keep the conversation from Will, not when so much of it concerns him. It wouldn't be fair. He said he was sleeping with April. Did you know that? I had a pretty good idea, Will said very shortly. He moves across to the stove, taking over where she has left off. She can see that the muscles of his shoulders are tense beneath his shirt. And he confirmed that rumor I told you about last night, about the... She stops. This is so much harder than she thought it would be. How is telling the truth to the man she loves so difficult? About the pregnancy test. Will, she told Ryan she was pregnant. She said, at least, she implied it was his baby. Very slowly, the flush drains out of the back of Will's neck. For a long moment, he just stands there, motionless, his shoulders sagging. Jesus. I know. There is a knot in her stomach. He doesn't know if she was telling the truth about the pregnancy, but she did say it. Why? Will says, and his voice is like a groan. Why would she lie to Ryan? No, I mean, why you, Hannah? He puts down the spoon and turns to face her, and she sees that his face is pale and set. Why are you doing this? Why now? Why am I doing what? She cries, trying to find out the truth, because Neville is dead, Will dead, and I have to know if I condemned an innocent man to die in prison. Don't you understand that? No, I understand, he says. He has himself under control now. The anguished note in his voice is gone, and when he speaks again, his words are almost unnaturally level, as if he's spelling something out to a small child. In fact, I think it's you who don't understand, Hannah. Don't you see what you're doing? If Neville didn't do this, someone else did. Yes, Neville's dead, and you can't change that. So why can't you leave this alone? She's staring at him now as if a stranger is standing in the corner of her kitchen. Will, are you seriously saying that if April's murderer is still out there, you don't care? I'm saying that April's murderer, as tried and convicted in law, died in prison, and that was the best thing for everyone. What good are you going to do by digging all this up, finding motives where were none, and unearthing decade-old dirt? I mean, so what if April sent Ryan a pregnancy test? Are you really going to the police with that? For what? So that the bloke in a wheelchair with 2 little girls and a wife who adores him can rot in prison instead of John Neville? Did he just say Ryan killed April? I'm not saying Ryan did it, Hannah said hotly, but Will interrupts her. Then who? Hugh? Emily? Me? Don't be stupid. You weren't even in college that night, Hannah snaps. But there were hundreds of other students and staff members who were, and who weren't investigated because of my evidence against Neville. I can't let that go, even if you don't give a toss about what happened to April. She shuts her mouth at that and stands there panting, horrified at her own words. She knows she went too far with that. I don't think you did. I think you hit it right on the nail. Will is not stupid, anything but, and he certainly cares about April, just as she does. She waits, expecting him to call her out on it, on the unfairness of what she just said, on her irresponsible in pursuing this. She's waiting for him to call her selfish or obsessive, or to point out that she had no problem in letting Neville rot for 10 years. So why now? What does his death change? And she wouldn't be able to answer any of it, because if he said any of those things, he would be right. But he doesn't. He doesn't say anything at all. He just turns away from her, put the pans back on the heat, and goes on staring. That's the end of that chapter. Okay. With his outburst of saying, insinuating that Ryan did it, could be why Ryan, why would Ryan tell on himself? He might be, let me think about that. 1 minute. Ryan could be poking Hannah to get to Will because he know Will did it. And Will is trying to shut it all down and blame Ryan because he know he did it. That Will did it, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. They all on my radar. This is like, I don't know who did it. All of them could have done it. And somebody knew. But I still want to know why Will is not supporting her in this. Because if he loved April, he would be supporting her, right? Anyway, we shall find out. I shall see you in the next chapters. Bye for now.